Mata. Oh my gosh. Welcome to Yarn with V. We have every podcast we have amazing people, but we have got the most incredible woman for you. I am super excited to introduce her. Firstly, I just want to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from Ghana country, and which is, for me, is the northeast Adelaide Hills. As you can see a little bit behind me, I'm absolutely honoured to live here, work here, and you know, the elders are doing an amazing job in continuing connection to country. So, Dionne Connolly. Oh my gosh, she is an entrepreneur. She's a certified life coach. She is a consultant. She is an author. She is the most incredible community member. And ultimately, she is someone I call sister and friend. She is an incredible woman. So she does a heap of things. She's from northwest Queensland. She's a Kalkadoon woman. And what do you say about someone who's doing so much? We're going to yarn about her book too, this one here, because she's all about empowerment. She's worked in so many different fields, mining. She's worked in health. She's worked in education, manufacturing, resources, communications, government, and has been doing incredible things. But during that journey, she's discovered that her true passion lies in empowering people, and which you can see why we get along so well, because that's where we are here at Yarn with V. So yeah, empowering people to, well, I guess what she's doing, living their life on their terms, and ultimately about realizing their true potential, which is why this book, What's Your Superpower, is so important. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dionne Connolly to Yarn with V.
Hello.
That's
so beautiful, V. Thank you so much, Nini. So I am a Kalkadoon woman from northwest Queensland, and I live on Yagara country at the moment. I've been down south for about 5 years. And look, I just want to say it's an absolute honour to not just have worked with you in the past, but also just to have you in my circle. I think it's really important that women support other women. And I always know that there's a yarn to be had. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And the fact that we can share things. And the most exciting thing for me is, I love that your podcast is Yarn with V, because that's exactly, I think, what we do so well, right? It's just yarning. But when you say living life on your terms, my tagline for my business is literally success on your terms, because it's all about empowering other people. What do you want? Who are you? How do I help you be the best you that you want to be in this space, in this time? Because we all change, right? And I do talk about that in my book. And I think, how long has it been that we've known each other? 5 years? 4 or 5 years?
Probably no longer.
Longer than that now? And honestly, there's been so many changes, and not just physical. not just physical changes, things change. I've even moved house. Like, who thought I would ever do that? But hey, here we are. So, I'm keen for this yarn, Bianca.
Mm.
I'm always keen for yarns with you. But
Yeah, me too. I got my cuppa here, and yeah,
me,
deadly.
of
So,
course.
yeah, of course I've got a cuppa. We're yarning about living life on your terms, and so often society, people, they tell us what our life should look like without actually recognizing that we have our own views about what our life looks like. And 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 that the classic thing when people say, Dee, when they say stay in your lane, uh, uh, for me that just infuriates me. I just go, let's just pull down them lanes. There's no lane. I can be wherever I damn well please. So what does living life on your terms look like?
For me, it's always just about, what do I want? It's as simple as that. It's actually, and that, I just want to say that might be a very simplistic view of a complex concept, because not a lot of people actually know what they want to be.
Mm.
Not a lot of people. They think, like you just said, society informs them about who they should be and what they should want and what their life should look like. And so
What
they
they should
just,
wear, what they should do, the friends that they should have. Yeah.
the kind of education they should get, the kind of job they should have, the kind of car they should be driving if they mix with this kind of people, and the kind of house they should have, and all sorts of things. It's informed, I think, through societal expectations and standards somewhat, but people don't often sit down and say, well, do I really want that?
Mm.
Do I really, really want that? And I've got to say to you, I knew a man who was a multi-millionaire, and he often came through my small town, and I never even knew that that man had money. Because
Mm.
when he walked through, like, sometimes I think to myself, there are people who go through life and they're dripping in Gucci, and they've got the diamonds on and they're all this and that, and they're driving the really flash car, the super flash car. It's like the one you
Mm.
had when you're a kid. You see Lamborghinis or Ferraris or whatever, and you just think, oh my God. And this man, he would walk down the street and you would never know that he even had money. And I think he just lived life on his terms, doing the things that he wanted to do. And it didn't matter how much money he made, he still remained his authentic self. He was
Mhm.
him, and he did what he wanted to do. And I think that that's exactly what I do as well. I go through life just being me. I ran into a friend of mine, and I call her a friend because we genuinely had a connection when we were younger and we were in school. And I'm talking high school, so Jesus, how long ago was that? You know,
A bit.
quite a few decades ago. Haven't seen her. And it's not like we were
Mm.
besties or anything, but we just had this connection, like I could see her. I knew who she was. And despite what society might have thought about her and her family and the lifestyle she and her family chose to live, I just thought, well, you be you, sis. Good on you, go for it, and I accepted, and I really connected with this woman, and I thought she was beautiful, and I still think she's beautiful. I was fueling my car up. Haven't seen her literally 35 years, something like that. 30, more than 30 plus years, haven't seen her. And she was fueling up her big F truck across the way from me. And I noticed the truck first. And then I was like,
Mhm.
hey. And I went over and I said, oh my gosh, and I said a few things to her, and we had a big cuddle because, I'm a cuddler. And she sent me a message on social media not long after, a week or so after, and she said, your smile is still exactly the same.
Of course.
You know, and I think that's, if we can take anything with us through our lives as we change, because we're not the same people. I'm not the same person I was when I was 16, 17.
Mm-mm.
Definitely, I've evolved.
Why would you want to be?
No, exactly, right? Although, I don't know, I think I could do with the stamina that I had back then. You know, burning the candle at both ends. But, you know, we change and we evolve. And I think that's the thing, B. Like, people still remember you for the experience and the feeling you gave them when you interacted with them. It's not so much what you looked like, it's not so much the car you were driving or the house you were living in. I think some people might remember you like that, but the people that you have true connection with,
absolutely,
it's who you are on the inside. And I think that's how I try to live my life. So I live my life on my terms, just being my authentic self. And hey, I've got to tell you, sometimes I'm an absolute can't say the word probably. You know,
you go for it. No terms, no restrictions here.
No restrictions. But it's honestly like, depending on the circumstance of any given day time, what we're going through, it can, if we're not incredibly present and mindful, and let's be honest, most of us go through life on autopilot, B. We're not thinking most of the time in the present moment. We're just doing. And so, therefore, we're just kind of coasting, and other people don't know what's going on in our lives. And so we're not managing our emotions in some situations. And, you know, someone who's never met me before, who sees me at a particularly stressful time or a time when I'm particularly anxious and I'm not being very present, they might have a very different view of me than someone who meets me in different circumstances when I'm in a different environment and, you know, feeling very different.
That's
So
our humanness, though, sis. That's our humanness. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I just, you know, live life as authentically as I can, just being myself, whatever that is. And I try not to worry or be too overly concerned with how other people interpret whatever I'm putting forward in the world at any given time, as long as I can live with myself and the things that I'm doing, saying, being, striving for. You know,
and that's the thing, isn't it? It's that authenticity is you can actually be, do, say whatever, as long as you're being authentic to you, because that's who you are. If you're pretending, and you know, so often we see people who are pretending that for some reason they're wearing this mask that that they feel that that's what people want to see, but it's actually not really what people want to see. People understand and resonate to inauthenticity. And wow, that's a big word. And I was like, oh, I might have to think about that word there. Yeah, instead of just being them. And you know, I want to let's just touch on, because people don't actually understand how deadly you are. I mean, I gave a little bit of a snippet there, but you know. So tell us about the business, like the mining, construction-y commercial business that you were running. Like, we're talking a big business. And then you've moved into this other beautiful space because it's resonating with you more. But tell us, because that takes guts to step away from things.
I think comfort zones, right? We all get used to what we know.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, it can be scary, and it does take courage to step outside that. But for me, it ended up being quite an easy choice
Mm.
because how I fell into business, I call myself an accidental entrepreneur, to be honest,
I think
because it
everybody
wasn't.
is, aren't they?
Yeah, you don't kind of. It's not like something
Oh,
you
I'm going
would
to be an
start.
entrepreneur.
Yeah, right. When you're in primary school and people are, I'm going to be a policeman, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm
I'm
going to
going to
be
be
a
a vet.
nurse or whatever.
Vet.
Yeah,
That was
vet,
me.
whatever, a cowboy or an Indian or whatever it might be. No one ever stops and thinks, oh, well, I'm going to own my own business. I'm going to be an
Mm,
entrepreneur. No, I
mm,
don't know one person ever who's
mm,
ever had that thought as a little kid. And I think
mhm.
it's because and this will take us on a different tangent, so I'll just say it and move back over. But I think that's
Hey,
where
we
the
can follow
education
tangents. Let's take a tangent.
that's where our education system lets us down, Bianca.
Oh,
Like, it's
yeah.
not until you finish high school that people start talking about, oh, well, you could go in and you can go to uni and you can do a Bachelor of Business, or you could do this,
Mm,
or you could do that. And then you start looking at what business is. But if you were thinking about business from a child and really considering what are my talents, skills, interests, where am I going to, where would I love to put my energy, you could come out the gates
oh,
absolutely swinging by the time you
absolutely.
graduated. And then you could be
Absolutely.
in business while getting your degrees. Um,
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing, what happens is when kids say, "Oh, I want to do this," rather than going, "Wow, how could you get there? What could that look like?" It's, "Oh, don't be silly. You can't do that." And so we're already squashing people into boxes. You
mhm.
need to finish school, get a job, or finish school, go to uni, get a job, work for somebody else, rather than, you know, maybe you could write books and fly around the world.
Maybe you can just yarn to people and have an impact and put your stamp on the world.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
the
And
that's
it's
the
just so
blueprint,
sad.
right? That's the
Yeah.
educational and societal blueprint. Here you go.
Mm.
It's almost like they give you a choose your own adventure book, and it's already all
Yes.
mapped out. You can only go down these paths to get to what they consider the end
So
goal.
sad.
You're not getting all the information to make a decision for yourself about, well, what do I really want? What does success look like for me? And that looks
Mm.
different for different people depending on where they're at in their life. And success for a little kid might be, I'm going to get through the whole week without getting into trouble.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
then
Or I'm gonna get that ice cream because I've cleaned my room when I get home.
that's it. Right. Exactly. And then, as you get older, it's like, okay, well, success is going to look like if I do get that job, or success is going to look like if I do
Mm.
manage to actually get through school. Because so many, especially of our mob, don't make
Absolutely.
it. They don't make it.
And
But
I think that's because we squash. Oh my gosh, I'm just gonna verbalize this. We need to do something in schools, you and me. Anyway, I'm just gonna put that out there to the side because that's a yarn for later. But we squash kids. We
mhm,
go, this is the curriculum, and this is what you need to uh, respond. And so I've always said to my kids, and I'm sure that you're probably the same because you and I are very similar in lots of things. I used to say, what you say to the teacher is, this is the answer that you're looking for, but if you're asking my opinion, this is my answer. So you give it, on both hands, but what you're doing is you're still being able. That's that entrepreneurial mindset.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
And I think it's also just being authentic, right? Like, I know that this is what you want me to say, but this is what I really think.
Yeah, but if the
And
question is, what is your opinion of, or write a reflection of, then you need to listen to what that opinion is or that reflection is. Okay, I'm going to put a whole different tangent now because I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this.
All right. Well, let me answer the question about the accidental entrepreneur first.
Yes, go. Yes.
Okay. So I told you I'd bring you back to it, and I will. So I'd always worked. I never, ever, because we came from nothing, if I wanted anything, I had to kind of do it for myself. And I do share the little story about my first journey into entrepreneurship in here. I was 8 years old. Wow. And I desperately wanted to ride on the rides at the show. I don't know, the fair or whatever, like the show. The show comes to town once a year. And we didn't have a lot of money, and we still, not saying my parents didn't have money at all, but we didn't have a lot. And
rides on a show is right down
every
the bottom
kid
of the
wants
list.
that, right? Yeah. Hey, look, lucky that you're going. And there's only so much money. But I tell the little story about how I found a way to make money, and I really concentrated on it for a full year. And the next year, I rode myself sick at the show. I literally was throwing up. The story's in there. So
I'm going to read something from your book. Because honestly, you mob, if you haven't purchased this book, buy it. And we'll put links up to it as well. So this is chapter 12, and I was flicking through the book this morning, literally, and just, celebrating your journey of you standing in your authenticity. And I came to this chapter, oh my gosh, it just jumped out at me, and I knew that we had to yarn about this. So chapter 12, Maiden to Matriarch, Grandmother's Wisdom. I'm just going to read you a tiny little bit. I'm going to skip a few things. The maiden to matriarch journey represents the transformation from youthful exuberance to the grounded, wise strength of age. At each stage of the journey, we encounter opportunities to learn, to grow, and to be guided by the wisdom of those who came before us. In many cultures, grandmothers hold a special place as keepers of knowledge, wisdom, and tradition. They are the custodians of stories that have been passed down through generations, and they offer a unique perspective that can only come from a lifetime of experience. Oh, I just get goosebumps. It is beautiful because that's our grandmothers living life on their terms. So yarn about where that part came from. I've got a good idea, but I'm just going to ask you where did that insight come from?
So I grew up on a cattle station, but we didn't own it. And it was one of the very biggest in the northwest of Queensland. And my father was a ringer, and we lived down on the river. And over many, 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 many years, he worked his way up to being the head stockman. And at that point, they actually gave us a house to live in.
Wow.
So that was massive,
Yeah,
and in the meantime, I had gotten sent to town to go to school because my dad always said, I haven't got a lot to give you, but I can give you an education because it's free.
Yeah.
And when he passed away, he had 2 saddles and a plant of 20 horses, 1 car, and the Bible in his glove box in his car. So we never actually owned a house, so for me, I would not be who I am or have achieved half the things that I have managed to achieve if it wasn't for the women. I get emotional just thinking about it.
I'm feeling it. Yeah.
The women in my life, the
Yeah.
women who all played a role. And I think central for that was always my grandmother, right? On both sides of my father's mother and my mother's mother. Like, they are integral. They're the sun that the whole rest of the family revolves around, you know? And
Absolutely.
the sacrifices that they make, the lessons that they teach you, but also the way that they guide you through life in, you know, they're always the safe place to land. They're
Absolutely.
the, you know, the smell of cooking. There's always a feed to be had. There's always tea. You know, you're never without tea, and they can put a damp, you know, they got a damper done before you can even blink your eyes. It's crazy. But where that last chapter came from was an acknowledgement that no matter what I have achieved in my life, I didn't do it autonomously. I could not have done it all by when I look where I come from to where I went, people think it's a story I made up. It's my real life. And it's only because I was always told you can be whatever you want to be. You just got to work for it. And don't let the challenges and the barriers and the other people who don't believe in you stop you from going after what you want. So that chapter in the book about my grandmother's wisdom and that journey, like, I can only hope to be the matriarch that they were. You know, bless them both. They're no longer here with us now, but they leave pieces of themselves inside each and every one of their family members, whether you're a direct descendant or whether you are someone that we brought into the fold, because there was always a warm bed and a cup of tea and a feed for anybody.
Absolutely.
You know, that's a grandmother's house, essentially. You know, it's where the critical conversations happen, B. And it's where the lessons, even the harsh ones, it's the place where you go to feel protected.
Yeah.
You know,
And the joy.
That's the place where you run. You know, it's like, oh, my whole world's in chaos. My world's crashing down. I'm going to run over to Grant's.
Yeah.
You know, and the answers were always found there. And it's because there's probably nothing that you could talk to her about that she hasn't seen or experienced or heard about before at some stage in her life, or your mother's life, or your auntie's life, or your cousin's life, you know. And so that whole transformation from being a young girl and then moving through into motherhood, and then looking at what the legacy that you leave behind as you become the matriarch and the grandmother in your families. So I think underneath all of that, there's this underlying message that we all want to be, in some way, I think it is the human condition to want to be and conform to societal norms. You want to fit in, right? You want to do that. So we try to be dutiful descendants. We try to follow in their footsteps. As blackfellas, we are always looking to, how do I honour the people who cut the path before me? How do I keep that, you know, how do I keep the good fight going? How do I, you know, meet up to their expectations and be better, understanding the sacrifices that they made for me?
Yeah.
My chapter, though, is also, and I hope it does resonate with people, but it's also about, and my whole book, in fact, being yourself so that you can be a good ancestor, not just a
Yes.
dutiful descendant. You want to be
Mm-mm.
you, and I just got goosebumps. So
Yeah.
you want to be the mate. Well, for me,
Mm.
I want to
Me
always be
too.
my authentic self. I want to always be me and be my authentic self and achieve success on my terms according to what I
Mhm.
want and what's important to me, so that my descendants can look up to me and say, she was a good ancestor. She is our
Yeah.
matriarch, and I want to be like her.
Yes. And
And I
that's
can be like her because
I
she's
like
part of me.
yeah. And I love that. You know, that story, yarn, but also it's more than being a dutiful descendant. You know, it's about being that matriarch, that ancestor for somebody else, for generations to come, being that safe space for our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren, and instilling those qualities in our children and grandchildren
Mm.
and down through the line. I mean,
Because
that's key.
my grandmother played a huge role in how I presented myself to the world.
Yeah.
She led the way. Like she said, you can't leave this house with your clothes unironed, and you go and put cream on your legs. Like, you show up how, you got to present yourself, but you're still allowed to be yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You need to be
Because
who you are, but care about yourself. Care
yes.
about yourself enough. So she built self-care into that
Yeah.
while still helping me fit in.
Yes.
Do you know
Because
what I mean?
if you're not caring about yourself and how you present, I'm not talking about we're both on the same page here, not talking about being fake, having a mask, but it's about I'm actually me and I present myself to the world in a way that shows that I care, and not just care, but I love myself. Not oh, I love myself, but love. I love and honor myself, because what I want, and what both of us want, I would say, is that we want our children and grandchildren and our community to also love themselves to the
Yes.
point where they care. They care what happens to them. They care what they put in their bodies. They care how they show up for each other. That's
That's
what
the
community
key.
is about. Yeah.
That's the thing. Why did everyone gravitate to Grand's house?
Yeah.
Because didn't matter. You always got accepted. There
Yes.
was always a place for you, and
Mhm.
someone was always going to care about you.
Mm.
And there was always something, she could always find a job for someone. Like, she could make you feel useful.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, and she managed her house. And this is the thing. How many kids today can say that they've got a safe place to go to,
Mm. Not
right?
a lot now.
And it's really, really sad. And I don't know what's happened. And in this ever changing world, like, it's just ever, I always say the world I grew up in, it doesn't exist anymore. Like,
Mm-mm.
that world is literally gone. And
Mm.
there's a lot more of this virtual interaction.
Yeah,
And like
like
you
this.
said, yeah, well, but I think the difference is, though, B, is that we've spent a lot of time together
Yeah.
in real life, if you like,
Yes.
um, which makes this virtual
Yeah.
connection
Easy.
easier.
Mm.
Um, and I think because there is a lot more virtual interactions. You're not having to actually walk up and knock on someone's door and show respect. It's like, I'm just going to put myself out there, and if you want to look at me, well, go for it. Lovely, excellent. Just make sure you press the like and share. You know, that's pretty much
It's
how it
so
is now.
sad. Yeah.
And people are getting more and more bold and brazen, and they're not. I think there's a reason that we have expectations, right? There's a reason that there are laws. There's boundaries. There's for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think so people don't fall into this chaotic world where it's every man for himself, and I'll do whatever it takes to jump all over you to get where I'm going, kind of thing.
And forgetting family and community.
Exactly. Instead of realizing if we all banded together, we could actually achieve a lot more in a shorter period of time, or maybe it'll take a longer period of time, but there'll be less pain in them, because we
and lift each other up. We don't see enough of that. There's always what I call the scarcity mindset. That we're so worried about someone else taking a little patch that we don't actually realize that there is no little patch. That's all in your mind. And it's about lifting up and celebrating each and every one with their uniqueness and their skills and their talents and their humanness and their kindness and all the other little things in between, without feeling threatened. And I think that's almost like a skill, because see, our grandparents, if we go back to grandparents, our matriarchs, they didn't care they cared, but they didn't care how you came. They just wanted you to come. Sit around the fire, sit around the table having cuppers and damper and things like that. Whatever it looked like, they just wanted you to share in community. And each grandchild is celebrated regardless of who they are, what they do, and all this kind of thing. And
sometimes the most needy or wayward or out of the box got a lot more attention, because it's like, oh, little duckling, I better just put you right here under the wing. Right? We're going to keep you in the fold. You can't wander too far because you still belong to us.
Absolutely.
You are important to us.
Yes.
And we're going to come together to make sure you're okay.
And we're going to remind you. We're going to remind you that you are important.
Because if it happens to you, it happens to us.
Yeah. Oh, I'm feeling so teary.
That was always the message. That was always the message, B, and that's the grandmother's wisdom. Like, I couldn't appreciate those things when I was 7, when I was 17. But I tell you what, I appreciated the fact when I was 17 that my grandmother instilled it in me. Iron your clothes, cream your legs, brush your hair,
Don't turn up with greasy hair.
or unbrushed hair. Make sure just that care about yourself and represent our family. Know that when you go out in public, and I think that this came from, being banished to the ridges as well, like being a fringe dweller and
absolutely.
Needing permission to do so many things. And it's like, well, to keep you out of trouble, you got to fit in this box. If you follow these rules, then you're generally all right, And but it's much like, and I don't want to make this about religion, but you don't have to be a Christian to follow the 10 Commandments and live a good, healthy, wholesome lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Because those 10 Commandments are pretty good. They set some pretty good boundaries for living a good life, right?
Absolutely.
And it's the same with the stuff, and I'm not saying it's okay in any way. absolutely horrible what happened to our old people.
Mm.
But some of the lessons and learnings that came out of that about how you present in the world and
Yes.
how you're not oh, conformity, but I don't know if how to say this properly, but I'm not saying that it was a good thing that they needed it, but it
Mm.
set us up later on to be
We
able to
set us up
perform.
with success, that
Yes,
we can actually, they did the difficult part
the
so that we transitioning so that we actually were able to just step into this space, not just step into the space, but hold space on our terms, rightfully hold space, because our matriarchs actually did that hard work for us.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
they instilled things in us that we didn't actually realize were being instilled.
That
And I think
that's right,
that's,
and they
hmm,
yeah. Sorry, B, sorry to cut you off.
no, go for
Oh, I just think that that was just such a huge part of their journey
it. Mm,
and their learning from those hard times.
absolutely.
They took the best parts of that and said, "These are the lessons I can give you so
Yeah.
that your journey in this, what the world looks like now," because remembering I just said the world I grew up in doesn't exist. Imagine what it was like for my grandmother
Oh, yeah.
45 years ago,
Yeah.
and she gave me the lessons that made it so much easier for me to navigate the world because she'd
Yeah.
already been there and done that.
Yeah.
And
It's funny. You're talking about, the lessons from our ancestors. It's I think it's sweet. Like my dad, he's amazing. And you talked about the what your father had given you, the education and things like that. My dad has his work clothes at home on the farm, and then before he leaves the property, he always gets changed. He always looks smart and tidy and things like that. And it's funny, we've had that yarn with the kids, and oh, isn't that cute that Pa gets changed before he goes out? But do you know what? He always presents himself well. And there's a lesson that 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 is instilled in what it is, how you present, and not inauthentically, like we've been talking about. So these lessons from our grandmothers, from our ancestors, from our parents on what that can look like. Wow.
and how it can serve you.
Yes,
Because B, you
absolutely.
can't rock up for a interview for a corporate job in your Lorna Jane gym gear if you're lucky enough to have it.
That's it.
It's about
Exactly.
how
Yeah.
you present yourself. And the thing is, I don't think people truly understand the power
Yeah.
of I feel like shit,
Yeah.
but if I go for a shower, if I put
Oh.
on a nice dress, if I do stop and take 5 minutes to rub some moisturizer into my skin,
I
care
feel
about
fabulous.
myself, right?
Mhm.
And it can change your mood, and you don't
Absolutely.
you don't
And that's the first
feel that.
impression that people get of you.
Exactly. That's
And
exactly
so, yeah. So I wanna go another little tangent here, because we could yarn about this forever, and this has been some really beautiful energy here about that being a good ancestor rather than
Mhm.
dutiful descendant. I just love that. That's like you're going to be your quote, I think, for me. But tell me, what was it like writing, becoming this published author? I mean, this gorgeous gorgeous photo and everything. What was this like, stepping into authorship, I think it's called?
Okay, it all goes back to my roots. When you're growing up on the banks of a river, there ain't no electricity there, right? And we had, I don't know what, we used to call it a wireless, but I think it's a radio. Right? And Dad would put the batteries in it, and we would, I used to love Jukebox Saturday night, listening to all the country music and stuff and what have you. But because there was no electricity, obviously there's no TV, I'm an avid reader. I just read and read and read and read and read. And even when I got sent to town, I would always have to go home on weekends and school holidays. And so I would just borrow books from the library, and Mum would take me to the news agency and splurge out on a few books from the news agency for me. Reading. That's pretty much what I've done my entire life. I still read today. Every day I'm reading. And I've always wanted to write a book. And I actually always said, if I wrote a story about my life, no one would believe it. They would think that it was fiction. And so I did write this book more because I wanted to inspire people and let them know that if this little black girl from the bush can build a multi-million-dollar business from the ground up with
that's what I'm saying. You deadly.
Like, I'm talking like zero university background at the time when we had started the business, and just using knowledge, communication, and connection, then anybody can do it.
And sheer hard work and guts and bravery.
Well, I'm not saying there weren't any sacrifices. That's not what I'm saying. But needs be, right? You got to do what you got to do to get what you want. And if you don't, then you're not going to get it. So where does that leave you? And there's always a plan B, plan C, whatever. You can change it up and do your goals.
Your life, your goal,
your
life.
Exactly. That's right. Right? Live it on your terms. And you can change your mind and change your goal at any time. But for me, what writing this book was a sense of accomplishment. And it started, I actually wrote it 3 times, Bianca. That's crazy, right? But I wrote this book 3 times. The first time I think I did it was just, I always wanted to write a book, but I didn't want to focus on the trauma in my life. I wanted to empower people and inspire people and uplift people. And so the first time I wrote it, it kind of read like a resume. And I thought, oh God, that's scamming. No one wants to.
And
yeah, right. Who cares? Who cares what jobs you had and what contracts you won, whatever. And then the second time I revisited it and I rehashed it because I thought, oh well, it's not spiffy enough. It's not professional enough.
Spiffy.
Right? So you would think for all the books I've read, I could come up with a better word than that, right? But here we are.
Spiffy it is.
Spiffy, so I thought, I've got to give it that bit of a professional polish. I want people to take me seriously. And so I wrote it again with a lot of scientific and neuroscience and because I am very analytical and data driven, and very, it's like risk assessment, what can go wrong and how do I make sure it doesn't go wrong? And if it does, what's my backup plan kind of thing. So the second time I wrote it, it was very much like a textbook. And I thought, yuck, no one wants to read. At the end of it, it's like no one. So I'm really quite happy with how it landed in the end. And I mixed a little bit of myself and my personal story in with the how-to. So it is quite practical as well. So
Yeah.
if you genuinely are looking to improve your life and make changes and level up, like even just, you know, if you haven't got a job, get a job. If you have got a job and you want to climb the ladder, then use the tips in this book to help you develop
Absolutely.
yourself. And if you want to start a business, take the tips out of there.
Buy the damn book. So on that note, where can people buy it from?
So you can go to my website, and that's connollyconsultancyservices.com.au.
We'll put a link in the
Yeah.
the information. Yeah.
Or buy it on Amazon.
Oh, there you go. See, visit her website. Right there down the bottom in the banner. There it is. Or buy it on Amazon, and it is an Amazon bestseller. Number
Yes.
one Amazon bestseller. So that's deadly. Yeah. Awesome. Oh, you're there. Yeah. So so go to Amazon or visit Dee's website and buy it, because this is important stuff here for entrepreneurship, for living life, for empowerment. Really, it should be in every damn school. Really, that's where this should be required text in, not even a business course, but in anything, life. So yeah,
And it's not hard to read. I just want to say it's written in really, really simple language.
English, yes, which makes it accessible, and that's. I mean, I read out that small section. People can see it is easy. It's not a scientific textbook. It's easy to read. Yeah. So the last question, because otherwise we'll keep people here forever, which is deadly too. But who is Dionne? That's it. Who are you? Without the labels, without the business, who are you?
I'm just someone trying to do good, be good, and impact the world in a way that makes a difference.
Yeah.
I do put the labels on, B. The labels.
That's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, when you say without the labels, it's like, oh God, now what? Really got to think about it. But I think at the heart and soul of it, who I am is just a genuinely loving, caring person who wants to see people succeed, whatever that looks like for them, without labels, without expectation.
Absolutely.
And someone who is willing to walk with others on their journey, no matter what that might look like, without judgment, without real expectation, other than if you be real with me, then I'll be real with you. And otherwise, I'm just gonna, I don't ever give up on people either, B. I think that's the other thing. I think I try not to take what other people think about me personally. Yeah. And so I'm pretty quick to sort of say, oh, okay then. And we'll make it up, or we'll try again, or, I can understand, or I don't even need to know what you were going through. I just need to know that you broke our agreement. Or one thing I can't stand, and I do want to point this out because I'm not perfect in any way, shape or form.
Who is?
Liars, Bianca. I can't. How do I as someone who is always willing to negotiate and find a way forward and help people and work with them and walk with them, most of the time in a non-profit space, but that's a whole different story. Right, hello, our world. When people lie to you, I can't fix a problem if I don't know there is a problem. I can't negotiate with you unless I actually know what you want. And when people lie to you, it doesn't matter what solution I come up with for any given problem. If
Because
you're
you don't
lying,
know what the ground is. Yeah.
the solution is just like vapor in the air, because the problem is based off a lie. Because you're not being honest.
Yeah. And there's an inauthenticity. You know, if you're just pretending, I'm going to tell you that because that's what you want to hear, but that's actually not what I think or feel, or not the experience. Or I'm too scared to let you know that I've stuffed up, so I'm going to pretend I didn't. And all of those things. But yeah.
And from an entrepreneurial background too, like thinking in that vein, if I'm coaching someone from a business perspective and they say to me, oh, I want it to be this and I want it to look like this because I'm really passionate about this and I really care about that. But at the end of the day, all they really care about is making money and having a flexible lifestyle.
Absolutely.
That's okay too. No one says that's wrong. Everyone should be able to make money. Everyone has a right to make money. There's nothing wrong with that. But because they're not honest with me, I'm setting up the foundational launching pad for this business based off a lie.
Absolutely. And you know what? When business gets tough, money, it doesn't matter how much money you have. When it gets tough, then you don't want to get up in the morning, or you don't want to go and deliver that service or create that product, or creativity disappears because your heart's not in it. And that's the sad part about this. But I'm going to leave it there with the questions because
sounds good to me.
We could literally yarn about this forever, and maybe we'll get you back to yarn about matriarchs more, or entrepreneurship, or whatever. We'll talk more about that later. But I just wanted to absolutely thank you for being an amazing, inspirational woman. You are 100% becoming an inspiring ancestor for your family and community. And I'm just so honoured to call you a friend and a colleague and a sister and all the other labels in between. And when I heard your book was launching, and I just had to go and buy it because it's supporting you, but also, we're on the same path in a way, empowerment, moving beyond circumstances. And I love the fact that everyone's got a superpower. This is not saying that only a few have that. So I just wanted to thank you for making the time to come on to the show. And by the way, I can't wait until your podcast launches, and we might put some information up later about that too, so people could tune into your podcast as well.
Thank you, B. It's an absolute honour to, just like I said, share space with you and move in the same circles as you, and to always be able to count on you to have those critical conversations and just general yarns, because life is hard, and we all need other sisters to help us and hold us. It's really,
and
really
celebrate. We need to celebrate each of us. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, it's all the little things that make it worth it in the end, right?
Yeah, Yeah, completely. So go and follow Dee on her website, on her socials, in the banner there. It's showing you her website address. Go there, follow, like. She's doing amazing things, and stay tuned for your new podcast. And I can't wait to watch it and listen and everything in between. Anyway, so thank you
Thank you
very,
so much.
very much.
Thanks, B.